50 years of the Coral Eclipse, one of the great sponsorships in sport, one of the great showpiece events of the summer, and on occasion, one of the greatest races you'll see all season. And when I was asked to nominate my favourite, now I haven't been around 50 years, that might surprise a few of you, but I have been to a lot of Coral Eclipses, and my favourite, without doubt, was before I actually started in this job. It was in 2000, and that was Giant's Causeway, beating Calanese in that stirring finish. But it was about so much more than that, because I was a student in London at the time, and every time I could get to Sandown, I would. Love the place. Perfect sightlines, perfect viewing, wonderfully atmospheric. The flat racing for me on a given day can be, as exciting as the jumping day, and the Coral Eclipse, one of the great races of the season. And I was actually studying in Paris at that time. I got the Eurostar back just because I would never miss Eclipse Day. And what this race is supposed to be about is testing the new generation, testing the 3-year-olds against their elders, and this had everything. Because you had the Derby runner-up, Saki, who at the time was trained by John Dunlop in the Sheikh Hamdan silks Richard Hills was riding. The Derby looked a cracking addition. The Sindar was a genuine champion, went on to win the Argo. Saki had pushed him all the way, and they had beat Holloway back in third. Saki turned up to the Eclipse. Yeah, he had the class, he had the weight advantage, but he also had the stamina. So they wanted to make use of that. So that was going to be really interesting. Could he outstay his rivals, his older horse rivals, or would he get done for a little bit of foot? Also in the race, you had this lightly raced filly, brilliantly talented, probably not that easy to train, Shiva, who was trained by Henry Cessland in the Arcos family colours, and she was sort of coming in off the back of some pretty impressive performances, but at a lower level. And I think a lot of people expected her to take advantage of the fillies' allowance. She had a very, very solid horse in Fantastic Light for Godolphin, who'd already established a good CV, but would go on to win Breeders' Cup, King George, second of Montjour, and another King George. But he needed a bit of pace to run her. So Godolphin put Suncharm in as a pacemaker with Darragh O'Donoghue, and he went off, and he couldn't really go fast enough for Fantastic Light, but he couldn't crucially go fast enough for Saki. So Richard Hills was pretty aggressive on Saki, and Saki and the pacemaker kind of vied throughout the early part of the race for the lead, and then eventually the Suncharm began to peel away, and Saki started to try and commit and to turn the screw, but every single move was covered by George Duffield on Giant's Causeway, and that's what made this story great. So Giant's Causeway had been defeated twice already that season. He'd been defeated in the Guineas by King's Best, he'd been defeated in the Irish Guineas, but he'd come back and won the St James's Palace Stakes, and wheeling back just a couple of weeks later up in distance, he was ridden like not only did he stay a mile and a quarter, but he could have stayed 2¼ miles.
Giant's Causeway poised to pounce in second place. Saki's back on the fence. Then Fantastic Light, Shiva without much racing room.
Duffield, presumably on the instructions of Aidan O'Brien, had every move that Richard Hills made covered, and they just drilled these horses from about 3 down, and at every point it looked as though Saki was travelling a little bit better, and then just Giant's Causeway kept finding. And down the outside.
Causeway gets past Saki, but can he hold off? Calanese on the outside, Shiva between the pair. It's Giant's Causeway. Calanese swooping down the outside for the Aga Khan, but Giant's Causeway fights back on the far side for George Duffield. They race head to head. Giant's Causeway and 53-year-old George Duffield has landed the Coral Eclipse for the second time.
With what you thought was the devastating late run comes Pat Edery on Calanese. Comes barreling down the outside, takes it, wins it, except he doesn't, because Giant's Causeway amazingly battles back. And it was the extraordinary persistence that Duffield showed, and the extraordinary willingness in the response from the horse. And the beauty of Sandown is that there is a sort of natural rhythm to where you go on the racecourse. And I've always thought that its charm lay in that pre-parade ring, which is sadly not used as much as it should be nowadays, the way that the back of the grandstand overlooks the paddock, and that winner's enclosure, and they've always resisted the temptation to move the winner's enclosure somewhere else, and it has its own charm. It's special, it's enclosed, and when the crowd get round 25, 30, 40 deep, as they did that day, and I was buried in it somewhere, it's pretty special.
This is a serious horse. It's down to him, not so much being him. He wants to win.
It was a loaded field. It was a proper clash of the generations. It brought together some of the finest equine and human talent of that time, all distilled in one race. And most importantly of all, it produced the most titanic finish and a brilliant story of Duffield, well into his 50s, getting the best out of this extraordinary giver of a horse. What he gave us and what that race gave us on that day. Giant's Causeway in 2000. You go a long way to find a better horse race, never mind a better Coral Eclipse.